afternoon. Today I'm here to summarize the debate that we were having on the topic is or does education kills creativity. So the first speaker of the affirmative side defines the creativity, that what creativity is, and according to him, for a person to be a creative, it is essential to have some failures in the life and or have some experience that gives you some failure experience, and education system doesn't teach you that, because in education system for everything you have some solution. The education provides solution to every question. They don't teach you how to be a failure in a different ways. So he mentions that creativity is something that has to have some new rules to some discussions or some question or the issues that you are dealing with or the skills you are dealing with. So according to him, what he mentions is that process or the education process or the processes that are in education is not the creativity. That according to him, it's the misconception that one has that the education process will lead you to the creativity. What he mentioned is that in the traditional education system, it helps you or prevents you or makes you inert from being creative or having new thoughts and ideas. As he says or mentions that in this traditional education system, they teach you many irrelevant subjects or they give you many irrelevant ideas that is not supported or are not needed in your life or to enhance your skills or being more creative. He talks about that there are certain skills or there are certain techniques that one has or can be creative in or be good at, but the education system helps you or keeps you apart from being that creative or teaches you irrelevant subjects or irrelevant knowledge that it delivers you. He also mentions that they are just telling how to do. They are not telling or they are not nurturing the ideas of your interest. Just they are letting you know that this is the problem and this is the solution. They are not telling you how to progress or how to have different paths. They are just sticking you just to the one idea or just one thought. And he uses his personal life examples, and one of the example he quoted is of medicine, that if a person is interested in medicine or want to be a doctor, so he must be taught only that relevant material or should be provided that relevant knowledge only on that field, rather than giving him or teaching him about social science or some mathematics or some that stuff which is not he will not be using or he or she will not be using throughout his or her career. And at last he concluded it by saying that education system should be reformed so that one can nurture his ideas or thoughts according to his relevance or according to his skills or careers he want to develop in. And now I want to talk about the negative side. The first speaker of the negative side uses many references to support his argument that why education system doesn't kill creativity. So first thing he mentions that education helps in being creative when we are in learning process. So he mentions that during the learning process in the education, that is the period that you are creative. It's not that creativity comes you within a day or something. It's the education process you have to go through to be more creative. And he says or he discovers that one can discover new skills only when he is going through education process. There is no other way that you can discover your skills or be more creative. And he mentions that he quoted that Robinson defines creativity as imaginative process with outcomes in the popular education literature. That's what he quotes of Robinson. And there was another quote that he quotes in his speech that the William mentions in his article. Is creativity teachable? He says that yes, it is teachable. Thinking and application of skills that can be applicable through appropriate educational process. He says that you can adopt thinking and application of the skills if you are provided the proper or the adequate education process. So for this, you must have an appropriate education process. What he want to talk about that. He also mentions that he also mentions, it's the very important point that he mentions is that that there is no such process that doesn't comes under education system. The learning process that you acquire in helps you in creative or being more creative. He mentions that there is no such process that doesn't comes under education process. And he supported his arguments by using many different examples, such as he used example of cook, cricket, and computer. He mentions that for being a good cook, you need some knowledge for having that skill. You go through YouTube videos to acquire that skill, even though you are not going through professional knowledge, but still you are acquiring knowledge even. So that even comes under education system, what he means. And he says that being a good sports person, you need to acquire some knowledge, or especially he talks about cricket, that for cricket you need some trainers or some skills, or that can only be delivered if you get those skills from another person who is an expert in. So that also comes under education system. And he talks about computers. So he talks that for having it's important to have a computer skills when you are dealing with or being more creative in the computer field, or being more creative in software field. And the last what he mentioned is one can choose his own subjects. It's not mandatory, as the first speaker has mentioned, that one has to it's implemented, the subjects are implemented. So on the counter of that, he mentions a point here that one can choose the subject that of its interest and can flourish and do good in that. So it's not mandatory for you, and the education system is not restricting you to just learn different subjects rather than you can focus on your subjects. Now I'm going to talk about the affirmative second speaker. He mentions that mathematics is not a binary system. It's not just yes or no. It's just yes and no. It doesn't teach you how to be innovative. It doesn't gives you the reasoning power. It just says whether you are correct or you are wrong. It's not being mathematics doesn't teach you how creative you are, or doesn't develop your skill of creativity. He says that education system is making you robot, or making us robot, as what the instruction is provided by our lecturer. We are just adopting it to that. We are not being more creative in reasoning out the ideas or the thoughts that we are having on that particular topic. And second, he says that we go to college and universities just to acquire good scores. We don't go there just to acquire good knowledge or to be more creative. So here's the point he mentions, important point that he mentions. He also mentions that they just know what is right or wrong. They doesn't reason. He's talking about here about the students, what they think is, they just know what is right and wrong. The reasoning power has gone because of the education system, as he mentions. And the last he mentioned is that education makes us are working machines. He says that the person can only be creative if he has a thought that he can make a machine that can work, that the work he is performing or the duties that he is doing. Now I'm going to talk about the second speaker of the negative side. He supported his arguments by using examples like welding, cooking, computers, and sports. He stressed out more on the welding section that if the person is have experience but doesn't have any education, will not be performing good, or will not be having a wide knowledge rather than the person who is educated in a certain field or in that particular field. This is same follows with cooking, computer, and sports. He mentions in his examples, and he supported these by mentioning some references. He referenced craft, and he quoted that education enhances the development of creativity in children. And he also mentions that the second speaker of negative side mentions that the winner did a survey and found that educations and creativity are positively linked linked together. So they are in positive relation. One cannot separate them apart. If one has to be creative, the education system is necessary. And that's all. It's the summary. Thank you.